Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Kino with STEMwithKino.com, and today I would like to talk about the coefficient of lift and our control of lift, how we control lift as pilots. So, the coefficient of lift. The coefficient of lift is a dimensionless coefficient that relates to the lift generated by a lifting body to the fluid density around the body, the fluid velocity, and associated reference area. A lifting body is a foil or complete foil bearing body, such as a fixed wing aircraft. CL, or coefficient of lift, is a function of the angle of the body to the flow, its Reynolds number, and its Mach number. So basically, I know that was like a mouthful. If you go to your text on figure 5.5, you will find a chart. And we have the coefficient of lift, which is this red line in the middle. And this is what I'm primarily concerned with, or the gist of what I want to get to today. The coefficient is basically it's like a number. And it's a reference number that we use before we apply it to a formula. But, that's kind of like, what? So basically, what I want you, the takeaway I want you to get from this is, as we increase the angle of attack from 0 to 4 degrees, 8, 10 degrees, what's going to happen is the coefficient of lift is going to increase. Okay, so just think of it as the amount of lift that we're generating increases as we increase the angle of attack. So if we look at this aircraft here, we're pretty much at a 0 angle of attack. Or as close as we could be. It might be slightly high, but if we look at the attitude indicator, we could see that the nose is placed slightly above the horizon. So let's just pretend that that is like a 0 degree angle of attack. So at this point in time, this aircraft is not really generating lift. Actually, it's parked on the runway, or not parked, but it's positioned on the runway. So it's really not generating any lift at this point. We see that the angle of incidence is kind of slightly high, so maybe that's why we have that little slight nose up condition there. But what happens is, if we keep increasing the angle of attack, we're going to get to a point where we're at CL max, and this is where this is basically right before the stall occurs. So the wing is actually producing as much lift as it can at slightly under 20 degrees of angle of attack. So basically, if we come here and we come back into our cockpit, when we look at this attitude indicator, this will be 15 degrees nose up, and that will be 30. So technically, if that particular chart applied to this aircraft, right before we hit 30, we would probably stall. All right. Stall has other things or other factors that play into it, like speed and things of that nature. So in this little quick short video, we're going to see how increasing the angle of attack increases lift as depicted on this chart. So we're currently at a 0 degree angle of attack, and we're going to increase, and we're just going to play with different angles of attack as we can, and then we're going to bring ourselves to CL max, and we're actually going to stall the aircraft. And at the stall, the wings actually stop producing lift, so we don't have the laminar airflow that we talked about in earlier lessons. So let's jump into it, folks. All right, zoom out. And okay. So, like I said before, we're basically positioned on the runway, and we pretty much have a 0 degree angle of attack. So, in order to generate lift, we have to increase our angle of attack, and we do that by pulling back on the control stick or the control yoke. So you can see the choke coming back. So in order to take off, we're going to have to pull back on this control yoke and then the nose will go upward, and we'll be good to go there. So let me just rearrange this window a little bit, and let's get out of here. Now we have to have a certain amount of speed to break ground, so the airflow has to be flowing over the wings at a certain speed. At this time, what we can do, once we reach that recommended speed, which is our recommended takeoff speed, is we can basically gently pull back on the nose, which is called rotation. Okay. Now, if you note here, we have a vertical speed indicator. Now, if I push the nose forward, we're reducing the angle of attack. And if you watch, and I'll pause for a second. Let me just get this puppy level. So we're reducing our angle of attack. So the lift is decreasing. Now let's pause for a moment. All right. And let's zero in on that particular instrument. Here we have our vertical speed indicator. This tells us how fast we are climbing or descending. And it's normally in hundreds, or this is probably thousands of feet per minute. So this is 0.512. So if the needle comes up here, we're climbing at 1,000 feet per minute. If it goes here, we're at 2,000 feet per minute or 4,000 feet per minute. This is the climb. If this needle goes below the zero, then we're descending at 500 feet per minute, 1,000 feet per minute, 2,000 feet per minute, or 4,000 feet per minute. So we can do that just by increasing or decreasing the angle of attack. All right. So let's come on back. So we'll see what that does here. And you can see this instrument right here as we play around with the angle of attack. All right. Let's come to... All right. Let's come to a lock spot view. Come around to the side. So we're relatively at a zero angle of attack, and we can tell that by the angular difference between the horizon and the wing. They're pretty much almost level. So at this point, we're really not getting a lot of lift. Coming back to our chart here, so at a zero angle of attack, our coefficient of lift is kind of low, and this is why the vertical speed indicator is pretty much saying it's almost zero. We're not generating a lot of lift. We're keeping the airplane in the air, but we're not like generating a lot of lift as far as climbing goes. So as we increase the angle of attack, we're going to generate more lift, and the vertical speed indicator is going to indicate a climb, and we'll also see the altimeter also play. Let's see. So this is our altimeter. We're currently at about 1,300 feet. So as this rolls clockwise, this is telling me that I'm climbing. If it rolls counterclockwise, it tells me that I'm descending. So we don't just have one instrument saying, okay, this is what's going on. We have backup instruments that we can cross-check information. And it's for redundancy, just to make sure that an instrument has a malfunction or that it is operating properly. So we pitch nose downward, we're reducing the lift. We can see the vertical speed indicator. We can see the vertical speed indicator go to zero. So I'm reducing our angle of attack, and we can see that the altimeter is going counterclockwise because we're descending. 1,400 feet. 1,300, 1,200. So we've reduced our coefficient of lift. Now we're going to add power, and we're going to watch the altimeter go clockwise again. Okay, so now we're in a climb. We're increasing our coefficient of lift. The wings are generating more lift. Now, what we're going to try to do, and I'm not doing this using virtual reality, so now what we're going to try to do is we're going to destroy the lift. We're going to go full power, give ourselves enough altitude for recovery. So we're in a nice stabilized climb. And as long as we have the speed, we're going to keep climbing. Now the airspeed may bleed off a little bit depending on how strong our engines are. But let's see, we're passing through 6,000 feet now. And trying to adjust the volume in my ear a little bit here. Okay, that's better. So we're 7,000 feet now. All right, let's get ourselves above the clouds so we can see the horizon. A little bit better. Okay. Alright, we won't see the horizon that well, but let's see here. A little bit like kind of the cloud decks are in a way, but we can make out the horizon pretty much at this point. So we're going to come to our outside view. Now at this point, these wings are happy. Why? Because there's airflow going over the top and the bottom of the wing. So the laminar airflow is very, very good right now. Now, if we pitch the nose upward, we're increasing our angle of attack, and the coefficient of lift is increasing at this point. I'll pause for a minute. So we're increasing our angle of attack. And so as we increase our angle of attack, as indicated here on the bottom, the coefficient of lift is increasing, which is the red line. And we're going to bring ourselves to a stall. But right before the stall, we're going to hit CL max, which means the wings are generating as much lift as they can. Okay? You probably will not get as much lift at any other angle. Well, you won't at any other angle of attack than you will CL max. But CL max is right before the stall. So I'm flying this kind of weird because I'm kind of like watching in a third-person view, but I'm going to do as best I can. All right, so we jump back in. And our angle of attack increases, 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 increases. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull back. Now the lift is going to be destroyed. And I'm going to pull the power just to help it out. I'm going to hold, hold, hold. Okay, now the wings have stopped producing lift at this point. Okay, so let's get ourselves back together. Now, the only way to, at this point, the airflow is flowing back over the wings, so now the wings can generate lift again. And the airplane is so stable, it's almost recovering all by itself. I'm not putting in any control inputs in. All right? So this airplane is pretty much inherently stable. All right, come back to full power. Now I had to do that because the aircraft would not stall, or it just seemed like it was just going to like pitch up 90 degrees. So this would be what we would call a departure stall. All right, we have full power in, and let's see if we can get the stall to break. I have full nose up. And this pig will not. Come on, break, 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 break. I've got my full control pressure back. Okay. So, there we go. Now, I'm just going to get the airflow back over the wings. After the airflow gets, just flows back over the top and the bottom of the wings, the plane is flyable again. So, literally, I'm going to kill the airspeed. Okay, so this would be like a simulated engine failure of both engines because this is a twin engine aircraft. Okay, so most airplanes are actually flyable with no engine. The thing of it is we have to keep airflow over the wings for maneuverability and to get as much lift out of the wings as possible. So literally, as long as I'm at what we would call a best angle of glide speed, there's no worries. I mean, I'm still maneuvering the aircraft. I have airflow over the wings. And I thought I saw an airport somewhere. So, just coming around. In virtual reality, I'd just be able to spin my head or turn left to right, and I could pick out that airport. Alright, so where is she? Where is she? Alright, we're gonna pitch for 200. So even though we've lost our engines, we still have some options. I just have to find that airport, folks. Now, for this particular aircraft, let's see what we got here. I saw an airport. Okay, well, now this is a military aircraft, so I was looking for a runway to land on and no luck. So the next available option, or the next best option for military aircraft with ejection seats, if we could not make a runway, then what we would do is just kind of fly along the coastline and just eject. And that just means parachuting out. So at this point in time, there's really no other options. And basically what you would do is, and I'm not just going to go through all the motions because this was actually about the coefficient of lift, but basically you would just find a coastline, fly along it, and then you would bail out if there were no landing options. The highways are probably densely populated, and you know, that's not something that you would want to do. So we'll terminate right here. So basically that's it in a nutshell as far as the coefficient of lift. I know that is a weird definition to kind of swallow, but basically the coefficient of lift, it's a number, and it relates to lift being generated by a lifting body, which would be our wings, to the fluid density around the body. So when you think about the coefficient of lift, just think of it as the amount of lift that you're generating. We see at a 0-degree angle of attack, we're not generating that much lift, but as we increase our angle of attack or pitch nose up, we will get an increase in the coefficient of lift. And CL max just means the maximum coefficient of lift. Now for CL, we do have numbers here, 0.2, 0.4, and you know, so the coefficient of lift is increasing as we increase angle of attack. But when we get to CL max, which is right before the stall, as we demonstrated, the wings actually stop producing lift. In order to get the lift generating again, we just have to get airflow around the wings again. And what I mean by that is like air is flowing over the top and the bottom. At a high angle of attack, the winds or relative wind is just pretty much striking mostly the bottom of the wing, and we lose our laminar airflow. So I hope that this video was helpful concerning the coefficient of lift, and I thank you guys for watching. I'm Kino with STEMwithKino.com. Have a great day.